Welcome to Rom Wills Money Matters. Balance your checkbook. Now, that might seem a simple thing to do. I was talking with my lady friend last night, my young lady friend, and I actually asked her. I was like, what should I talk about? Especially since I'm expanding to money and everything, right? And she was like, talk about balancing your checkbook. And, my first thought, since I keep my stuff totally balanced, is balance your checkbook. What's the big deal about that? But then she explained how she had worked in a profession where a lot of people had bounced their checks and be complaining to her, getting mad at her. But they bounced their checks, right? And I was like, you're right. You're right. Part of this, one of the things I've been really good at is money management. Money management. And a lot of people, what happens is this, because they're not money managers, they know they got that, they know they got, say a rent check. Let's say a rent check, right? So they know they wrote that check, right? Say it's $1,000, right? Yeah, I know it's underpriced for some areas and overpriced for other areas, but let's just go with me on this one, right? So they write the check for $1,000, la-di-da, okay, yeah, they give it in, and then the rental office comes back and say, hey, sir or ma'am, your check bounced. And you're like, that's impossible. I had all that money in there and stuff. Well, yeah, you did. But yeah, you wrote that check, but you didn't, and you might even have recorded it. A lot of times you didn't. But you didn't also record, that $59.99, for that suit from, the ghetto store. Or, using your card or something, your debit card. You didn't put in the $30 you used to put gas in your bucket, Or you didn't write in your insurance money, your car insurance money, something. Usually what happens with many people is because they didn't balance anything. They didn't balance things right. They forget about it, and then the stuff is pulled out. And see, especially with checks. Not as bad with debit cards. I'm going to get into that in a second, but with checks, because people still writing checks for things, especially like rent and stuff, People paying stuff online, which I'm going to get into in a second, but especially with the checks, the people put in checks at different times. People put in checks at different times, and that's the main place you need to balance it for, because you need to know how. Okay, start out with how much you have in your account. You say it's $2,000. You write $2,000 on the line and stuff, right? And then you write the check for $1,000. Okay, you put the check number in, put it in, subtract 1,000 from 2, you're down to 1,000. Every single thing you need to write that in. Right, especially when you're using the check. Now, I also said the thing with credit and debit. Now, that's a little bit better, because if you don't have the money there, the person will say, oh, your card's been declined, right? Your card's been declined. And that could be for anything, which is good. Look, like the other day, I had a card declined because I got PlayStation for my sons and stuff. And I was like, decline? Wait a minute, I got all this money in here. And I always write it down. When the money comes out. It's an automatic thing. But when I checked it, it was just like they had the debit card they was getting the money off of. The particular number I gave them was expired. I hadn't updated the expiration date. It was very simple. But some people, they'll do that, and that's not even the case. They just don't have the money there, so they find out right away. All right. But even then, what if it's a situation where you really needed to have that money? You could be now I ain't even sure. If anybody's listening, you work in a restaurant, what happens if somebody gives you the debit card and they can't pay it? What do y'all do? The old thing was oh, they got to wash dishes. I don't know if they do that or not. I haven't, nobody's talked about it. So if you work in a restaurant or something and that happens, let me know. But you find out right away. But you would have known even in that situation if you balance your checkbook. Because, see, the checkbook, you not only taking care of written checks, but debits too. Anything you spend your money on. In fact, what should happen is, because I'm going to tell you what I do. What I do, no matter what. You know how you got people saying, oh, do you need a receipt? Yeah. Be like, yeah. Because sometimes people don't do that, right? They'll spend that money. And I've seen people do it. They don't take the receipt or anything. They just spend it because they think they got the money there. I always take the receipt. Go back and make sure everything's covered. It's like, all right, let me go in there and do it. Here it is. Boom, boom, boom. Now I ain't gonna say I haven't had anything bounce, but let's just say I haven't had anything bounce this century. Because I was negligent. The last time I had something bounce was 1996. I'm just be real with you. And that was on my own negligence. I just didn't write in something. That's it. I just did not write in one little, and it was a little thing too. And ever since then, I was like, one of the things you have to do is just develop the habit. It's a business. It's like a business thing. Every single expense, every time you use it, write it in. Write it in. And, I'm writing it in. And also what I do too, I check my bank account several times a day. I check it. And even before all of that, every month I have a chart, a little, a table, written out what bills have to be paid and, the day they paid on and everything. And I actually check that every day to make sure, first it came out, but then everything's copacetic, you want to keep up with that because it don't take much. Trust me, it don't take much. And, these people, they'll have something. It's like, oh, well, that check bounce. Okay, we're going to charge you $35 or something, In fact, that's one of the biggest banks thing. I ain't gonna call it a scam, but a big thing. But you got to keep it up because here's the thing, you got to look at that like a business. See, in businesses, they track every single penny. Now, even if you working a 9 to 5, you still bringing in money. That's kind of you got to treat it like a business. It's like, oh, okay, I got money for this. Now, remember, I talked last week about a budget. That's part of your budget, keeping track of how much you spending on everything. So you need to write it down. The best thing, now it's easier for women to do because they can carry their checkbooks and everything right on them in their purses. They can carry it in their purses. That's cool. It's harder for men. But as men, the men listening, as soon as you step in the house, go to get that checkbook, write it in, or whatever you want to use. They might even have apps that can do that. I don't know. Now that I think about it, because I'm old school. If they have apps that do stuff like that, can basically keep everything balanced, let me know. Because I'm old school. So, I'm from the day you had to write it in. And I still stay that way. I'm going to stay that way because I'm used to it. Right? But you got to have that skill. And it seems basic. Here's the thing. But my young lady friend said, yeah, the people will be bouncing their checks be in their 40s and 50s. And in fact, balancing your checkbook should be something that they teach in high school. They teach all this other stuff, but that's the one thing they should teach in high school. But then, some bank lobbyists might be giving politicians money not to introduce such a bill because they're like, wait, man, we be getting our cut off of this. So, yeah, but balance it. Like I said, it seems basic, but you got adults who be bouncing these things. And even when you go to the banks, anytime they talk about overdraft protection, they charge money for it. They expect that to happen. Oh, and for the record, I don't have overdraft protection because I don't need it. Like I said, I'm just straight up anal about keeping track of everything that's spent. Like I said, I check my bank account several times a day through my bank app several times. Even if I don't spend money that day, I'm like, oh, let me see what's here, because and it is very important because even when you debit sometime or use credit sometimes, debit should come out right away, but credit, because I remember one time there was some issue with credit at a gas station. Now, this was a few years ago. For some reason, it didn't register right away. But thankfully, I kept the money in there because it wasn't taken out. And then it probably came out a couple weeks later. I was like, what the hell? This was supposed to come out then, you know? But keep track of it. So, so check it out. In order to balance your checkbook, let's go make that money.